Good afternoon, everyone. Things seem to be a little better than the last time we all met, which was almost 3 weeks ago. Hope you all are well and safe and secure within your houses. This is Shivani Malhotra from Positive Vibes Consulting. And welcome to yet another session of Leadership Spotlight Series. As you all know, in every Leadership Spotlight Series episode, we bring to you insights by accomplished professionals who have done innovative and path-breaking work in their respective fields and have demonstrated exemplar leadership and who continue to add value to the fraternity. And today I am absolutely honored and privileged to have a very senior, seasoned, well-known and immensely respected leader amongst us. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Raj Gupta. Welcome, Mr. Gupta, and it's a complete pleasure to have you today with us on this platform. Thank you so much for taking out time and being with us today, in this episode.
So at the outset, thank you so much for having me on your platform. It has been pleasure interacting with you. And just a bit about me, roughly 25 years of experience, 10 years each with GE and TCS, worked across US, UK, Europe, and Indian MNCs. By profession, I'm in HR, but so I keep saying this, I'm HR by profession, but writer by passion. So have written 6 books so far, including 2 fictions, and keep writing for various magazines and keep contributing to, through my articles and nano posts on LinkedIn. So that's a bit of Raj.
That's, for the audience here, I would just like to say that, people who are connected with him on LinkedIn, so his ID or his, the name on LinkedIn is Raj Gupta. And what does it say? Lift
others to get lifted.
Lift others to get lifted. And that is such a beautiful thought. Speaks volumes about a leader, who believes in lifting others first in order to get, and that's when you get lifted yourself. So that's a very, very beautiful thought. I will encourage all our audience to follow Mr. Gupta on LinkedIn. His posts are very, very insightful, very rich in learnings, and for people who are, young, people who are, aspiring to carve a niche for themselves in the corporate world. His posts are really very, very insightful for everyone. So really encourage everyone to, follow him. We all know that COVID has had a significant disruption in the way of working. And there will be more disruption and a greater need for reskilling once the pandemic is over. Organizations today are thinking about the future of work post-COVID-19. How will it look like? Which jobs will go and which ones will stay? How the workforce will, pan out in the coming times? And most importantly, how would HR leaders' role change to facilitate this transition? And this is exactly what we are going to discuss with Mr. Gupta today. And with his rich and diverse experience, maturity, and wisdom, I'm sure we all will have a lot to take away from today's session. So I would like to ask you, COVID-19 has introduced the biggest experiment that we did with remote working. Many jobs that we earlier could not think of being suitable from a remote working standpoint are now being undertaken remotely. So what's your take on this? Do you think remote working is here to stay even after the pandemic? What do you think?
I think if you look at it, it's not just post-COVID, but pre-COVID also. There was this acronym called SMAC, which we call it Social Mobility Cloud Analytics, was already taking center stage alongside
Right.
machine learning, deep learning, chatbots, etc.
Right.
So what COVID has done, it has accelerated that pace of change. Now
Right.
technology has become commoditized. So already there was a set of companies who were already ahead in the game. If you
Yes.
take an example of EdTech, it was roughly, for the last 3-5 years, a lot of work was happening in that space.
Absolutely.
However, what pandemic has done, it has accelerated that shift to an extent. Whatever they were going to achieve in education sector in the next 10 years, they would have achieved or will achieve in the next 1 or 2 years.
Right.
We would not have dreamed, about our teaching community
Absolutely.
across the country leveraging technology to teach lessons. So they are not equipped to do that.
Yes.
So there was a huge leap. I think, in a brief, if I have to say this, technology has been commoditized. Earlier, people would have said it. They had a choice whether to go for it or not to go for it. But today, there's no choice. They have to, leverage it.
Absolutely.
So I think pace has been accelerated significantly, and during this situation, I see, couple of things coming up. The way the work happens, the future of work and the future of workplaces, both
Right.
have come under question.
Right.
As I gave you the second example of education sector, so how we learn and teach is going through a huge change.
Right.
And third major trend that is emerging is the gig workforce.
Yes.
So that is also coming up. So those are my few thoughts.
Sure. I think I completely resonate with you on the example of the education industry. I mean, prior to March 2020, nobody would have, thought of running a school online. I mean, it was one of the, jobs which required a physical presence. But I think post-COVID, the way the education sector has beautifully adapted themselves. I'm sure before March, including myself, I did not know what was Zoom and what was Google Meet. I didn't even know that these platforms existed because we never used them so extensively. And the same goes with the education fraternity. But I think the way they have, equipped themselves, they've gotten used to taking online classes, operating on the laptop, etc. It's all very, very commendable. And I think one point that I have observed in the last 1 year is that businesses that have adapted themselves to technology and have offered their services in the form of some technology or the other are the ones who have actually survived this pandemic and will survive this in the coming times also. So very, very pertinent point made here. You spoke about gig economy here. Now, I have a question related to gig working. So for the audience, gig working is where, to mitigate costs, organizations are hiring based on short-term requirements, freelancers, people on contract. Instead of hiring a full-time employee, they are hiring people, assignment-based consultants, freelancers, etc. So my question to you, Mr. Gupta, is: do you think it is here to stay, or is it just a temporary pandemic-induced phenomena?
Just call me Raj. So
Raj.
Okay, I think gig is already there in the Western world. If you see, this was already there. The government were at world over, and specifically in developing world, are at a very nascent stage of developing regulations around it.
Right.
Now, when I look at gig, it is an advantage. People who are running 1 person, 4 person, 5 person, or small enterprises, it's a huge advantage.
Right.
Because this offers an opportunity for businesses to get Japanese qualities as Chinese price.
Yes.
Right. And for the workforce, it's an advantage because a lot of time, people ask, why can't we have dual employment?
Right.
So why can't we? So I think there is a huge opportunity that has opened up. Earlier, the kind of hindrances that we have, that we cannot work from home or work from a remote place, I think COVID has taken that thought away. So
yes.
only thing that will come in between is this regulation and how CHROs across the world design some of those contracts. But it's a huge advantage. People who are individual, as a individual entrepreneur or small to medium enterprises, it's a huge advantage. And workforce also, it is a big advantage.
Absolutely.
And in the West, if you look at Europe model, they are already pretty high on that. It's the progressive world which needs to pick up momentum on this.
Absolutely. I think it's also opened the talent pool quite a lot, because now you're no longer restricted to just hiring people who can physically come to work. For example, you can now, you can hire working, mothers who are on a break, on a maternity break, and people who otherwise would have not been able to pursue full-time employment. So I think this gig economy is a win-win situation for both, because it has opened the talent pool quite a bit. And with technology, you are not just restricted to one particular place. The world is open. And but my question here is, like you pointed out in the end, that the CHROs need to draft the contracts in the right way. My question is, how do organizations make sure that the level of engagement and productivity of gig workers is the same as that of an employee? How does a performance management system or an evaluation system work for this category of employees?
I think if you look at it, the shift that has happened from industrial world to workforce, this 4.0 model, since then, it doesn't matter where you work from, as far as outcome is taken care of. So even world over, if you look at the contracting, they are also moving from time and material basis contracting to outcome based models, outcome based contracting. So if you have given a work to somebody and they are doing it, how they are doing it, when they are doing it, unless you are a supervisor, who has to poke his or her nose every half an hour and want to register at what time the person is coming and logging in and going, I think that's a different stuff. But that's not how the 21st century workforce will work. Or these digital natives, doesn't work the way earlier generation would have worked. So give them the work and give them the time, which is meaningful. They will give it back to you. So nobody should worry about productivity. It is the work that you have given. Output should be there.
Absolutely. I think that's what, especially the Gen Z that is now the current pool of talent. I think for them the flexibility is very important. I'd like to encourage our audience here, in case you have any questions, please post them in the chat box, and we'll have Raj address those. Okay, so coming to this again, workplace model. Now, what kind of workplace model do you foresee in the future, Raj? Do you think it would be online, offline, hybrid, or industry specific? What's your take on it?
I think we need to understand why workplaces are there. They existed to develop camaraderie, engagement, trust among the workforce. While the work is processed. Now the challenge in front of CHROs or business leader is, how do they translate the same level of engagement, same level of camaraderie in a world which is not physical.
Right.
So that's one of the challenges that I see, confront CHROs. How do you translate that similar level of engagement? So a lot of work has happened in the last 1 year on that aspect. Second, office designs were like that you were sitting, particularly if you look at IT and ITS industry, people were sitting closer to each other.
Yes.
But post-pandemic, those workplace design itself has come into question.
Right.
So that designing is also being relooked at. People are also looking at it, since they have seen it. It is working from home model. So I see large part of companies, particularly in IT or IT enabled organization, wherever it is possible, they will go for the hybrid model.
Right.
So you come to work when you need to come, which is unavoidable. Otherwise, it doesn't make a difference which city, which place you log in. As long as you have your laptop, you have your wires up, you are on. So that's the way I look at it.
Sure. So I think it's pretty industry specific. It's going to be pretty industry specific for probably industries that require a physical presence. For example, tourism, hotel, hospitality, all of that, manufacturing, all that has to be physical. They have to operate from a physical space. But like you said, IT enabled, ed tech, a lot of services, I think those would be probably following.
They are
And a lot
already
of
there.
people already
They are
following.
already there.
Already
If you
there.
look at it from a stock market perspective, or in general, the growth, the numbers
Yeah.
that are coming in from industry. So IT and pharma are two world which are generating a lot of revenue.
Right.
Profitable business, while airline business or hospitality, hotel industry has taken a huge hit, and
Right.
manufacturing is also crawling back.
Right.
So
Yes.
they did well, and suddenly the wave 2 came in. So
Yes.
that's where the situation is. But I see that there would be a variation from industry to industry, and
Yes.
wherever possible, 60 to 70% of the workforce will not come back to office. That's my view.
Sure. And what would be the role of HR in this new workplace model? What are some of the things that HR leaders would need to, differently do to facilitate transition to this kind of a model?
I think HR is also not used to this kind of scene. So when they would have looked at employee engagement, for that matter,
Yeah.
they would have certain way of doing it. Now suddenly you are not at a workplace, and employee is also not there. So they need to rethink their strategies.
Right.
How do they engage with workforce? Second, when you work from home or other areas than office, then surveillance also come into play. So how do you ensure because most of the HR people will confront these polarities.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how do you build a trust at the same time more surveillance?
Yes.
So that would be question. Second, because of technology, there is people say data insights, but there
Yes.
is also a demand for human insights.
Yes.
So how do we manage data insight versus human insight, surveillance versus trust?
Right.
People are let go. How do HR manage? When there is HR needs to be empathetic, but at the same time, if there is a situation that they need to let go of people, how do they manage that? So
Right.
there are 7-8 polarities which HR, and few of them I have highlighted here. HR will need to deal with it, because they are not used to it, and now suddenly they need to work on that, and they need to redo those strategies. Some organization has already started doing it. They are making a huge difference. However, its result would be seen over a period of time.
Sure.
Because people who are working from home, initially they may have enjoyed it.
Yes.
They would have liked it, some of them, but now they are itching to come back to office. So how do we create a model wherein they also feel comfortable? So a lot of models will develop. So come to office for 2 days and 3 days operate out of home, etc. But these polarities, how do HR manage? Is going to play a critical role in enhancing business profitability and productivity. Over to you, Shivani.
Meanwhile, Mr. Raj, there is one question from the audience. I'll quickly pull that up on the screen. It says, what are your thoughts on the impact of hybrid model on the culture of the organization? And what are your suggestions to the organizations and leaders who are moving towards this model rapidly?
I think it's a huge shift when I look at it. Prashant is the one who has put up this question.
Yes.
So Prashant, as Peter Drucker says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what you do, when nobody is watching, shows your culture of the organ. It's not what we say, but what we do, demonstrate it. Now, when you think of that culture, of course it will shift. As I said, it will be more outcome based. It would be more result driven, rather than a supervisor micromanaging. I think supervisor community also will need to be trained to see differently and make sure that they focus on outcomes rather than micromanaging staff. Second, they will need to make sure that they empathize with the workforce and their context and situation. So that would be critical, and there would be various layers that will come into play from a organization culture standpoint. And how do we deal with those polarities, as I touched upon, and how do we support the workforce will define the success of organization. So hope I have answered, Prashant, your question.
So I'm sure you've answered this question around how do we maintain the productivity part, but from an employee's point of view, now there is a concern that since the time this work from home started, a lot of employees are feeling burnt out. There is a complaint of burnout. There are longer working hours, meetings at odd times because you're at home, so anytime the meetings happen, and added to that is the pressure of doing the housework, helping out at home. So all that is leading to, employees feeling that sense of burnout. So what's your advice to organizations on how they can prevent this feeling among employees? Because this is having a significant impact on their overall, productivity and wellness.
I think it's both ways. I get a sense, particularly in our subcontinent, that we are available anytime. It's a day and night, which is not the case when it comes to Europe. When I worked there, so I have first-hand experienced it. So that discipline need to come from both ends, from leadership, supervisors, and from associates also. So associates also needs to make sure that they create their own workplace boundaries and convey that. Okay.
Right.
So that peer pressure, like I would give you an example. In an organization, at times, what happens that people sit late. So it is long. So I had a boss at some point in time. Is roughly 2 decades back. He'll come at sharp at 9 o'clock and go at sharp at 6 o'clock. So I would have never seen him after 6 o'clock in the office. And it was a manufacturing. Then suddenly he got transferred to another city.
Okay.
And there he was the in charge for that plant. And when I met him, I said, "How's life going?" He said, and I was pretty junior. He was a senior guy. So he said, "Life is going good, but there was a problem that everybody sit late.
Yeah.
So people will be sitting till 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock."
Yeah.
I said, "So what happens?" And I feel, slightly bad that I am the boss and I'm leaving early because my routine is same.
Right.
And so he said, I instituted a register there. So I said, anybody who's staying after work hours, just write down there what was so urgent that could not have been achieved tomorrow.
Right.
So he said within a week, the percentage of people sitting late reduced by 70 to 80%. And
wow.
Then he instituted another thing, that anybody who's staying back, must meet me. I would like to understand, whether there is a staffing gap so that I can help bridge it. So meet me, whosoever stays back.
Right.
Next day. He said another, out of those 20%, another 80% stopped coming from in a week or 10 days because nobody wanted to come to my office to explain. And he said there are a few people from accounting, finance, and finance generally, people sit late. So he said I was fine with that. So that's how I tackled it. So instead of changing myself, he helped change that culture. So I think, Shivani, it seems I've lost you again. But this is how the culture got impacted. And I think Prashant was talking about this culture. So this is one fine example of how do you bring shuttle change into culture.
One question I had related to that was that, in the post-COVID world, you did mention about some of the opportunities that are, that are going to come. But how will the job market pan out? I mean, what kind of jobs do you think are here to stay? And which ones would be redundant? And what new jobs do you foresee, getting added into this, into the job market?
I think before I answer that, I think this is what, when I was talking about empathy, like you went because of the power cut, couple of times, it got disconnected.
Yes.
Now, I think Prashant was talking about that culture. How do I take that as a manager who is doing an important meeting?
Yeah.
Do I empathize with the situation, or do I feel bad about it? It's that the person should have had XYZ stuff, or made sure there is a power supply and all that. So how do we behave? When we see a kid coming up, or there is a shout. So that will define how you react or respond to those kind of situations. So that would be a key aspect of culture, Prashant. Now coming on to your question, what jobs would be there? I think if you look at job market, every 2 to 3 years there is always a shift. Certain technologies that existed, new technologies come up, and they take over. So last decade, nobody would be talking about machine learning, AI, chatbots, deep learning, etc. And prior to few decades back, ASP was such a hot skill. Then JSP came into play. So technological shift will continue to happen.
Right.
However, the demand for workforce will also continue to happen. It's not that there would be less job. However, the jobs that were lot more logical, will get digitized. Wherever the logic is involved, but wherever human insight is required, those jobs would exist, and new jobs will come up. And I was explaining it to Anurag Shivani. I was giving an example of food blogger. YouTuber is another area where people freelance nowadays, and it's a huge opportunity, huge advantage. So like that, there are thousands of such jobs which were not existing earlier. Similarly, for organizations, new type of jobs are emerging.
So Prashant has a point. I guess I'll just pull that point. Maybe you would like to take that ahead.
Yes, it's important, because you cannot work, Prashant. What you have said, workplace boundaries is surely a way forward. Leaders need to be trained on this, and also on empowering their people to set and respect such boundaries. I completely agree with you. I think we cannot work, this leadership cannot work with the 20th century mindset. So 21st century solution, if you need to bring in, you need to have 21st century mindset only. So that's where I see it. That mindset change is required.
Absolutely. I mean, the mindset needs to be changed, and I think a lot of organizations have started to cultivate this mindset change. And one question that I have in mind, Raj, is what kind of reward and recognition programs do you recommend for organizations to have in the post-COVID world with the new workplace and work models? What sort of R&R programs they should run?
I think Netflixization of reward and recognition program is something that will happen. So it is not off the shelf solution that will exist. Every organization will take into account their context and their workforce demographics, and accordingly they will design. But Netflixization would be key. When I say Netflixization, it is customization. So if you go to Netflix and you watch a movie, and they then throw you with some more choices, so you will need to keep feeding your workforce interest in the way Netflix does it. Over to you, Anurag.
I mean, I would definitely, look, because the kind of ideation and the customization you need in the workflow force will matter a lot, and audience would, take this as a good key takeaway from today's discussion. Apart from this, there's another question that I have in mind, Raj, which you know, uh, let's say you talked about reward and recognition. What kind of employee engagement initiatives should HR leaders think in the present times and moving ahead in 2021 and beyond?
I think present time, if you look at it from our country's context, uh, the key thing is that establishing that connect with the workforce is a key. Providing them the requisite support that they need in terms of well-being, because well-being has been a key focus area for HR to support their workforce. So that's the one, and there are various models in terms of workforce engagement that are coming into play nowadays. So which is what I talked about. How do you bring that engagement from a physical workplace to your on your online workplace? So if you look at it, this discussion itself, if we had this kind of conference, we would be doing in a physical world. So similarly, if you see all those meetings, etc., are happening, and a lot of people are designing various programs and practices to enthuse, motivate the workforce. But all of that is happening digitally. So whatever happened in a physical mode is largely getting transported into digital world.
True that. That's really, really interesting and insightful. We have one question from Megha from the audience. I'll pull that up quickly. She's talking about, that experience is industry specific. She wants to ask you how true it is, and will it hold post-COVID in the job market?
I think I'll need a bit of elaboration on this. So experience is industry specific. How true it will hold post? If you can elaborate, Anurag, it will help. But if I understand it, if you have experience in X industry, for example, airlines industry at this point in time, and how true it will hold post-COVID job market, I think post-COVID job market, some of these industries will come back to normal gradually. So I need a little bit more elaboration on this question to take.
So I would request Megha to please elaborate in the comments. We'll get back to your question.
Sure. I'll just take another question that has just come. What is your opinion on the announcement by a few corporates that they will pay salaries of employees who lost their lives due to COVID for a certain amount of time? Should all large corporates be mandated to do so? And what can smaller organizations do to support the families of employees who lost their lives due to COVID? Very pertinent question.
I think majority of organizations, both large organization and small to medium organization, are supporting in the best way they can. I think everybody is coming forward. They have their own limitation. So that's where and an organization are doing the best they can in this situation to stand by their workforce. Those organizations will stand to gain from this period if they stand by their workforce. So I haven't come across any organization which is not making effort to help their workforce to mitigate the challenge. That is at the forefront of their workforce at this point in time, particularly from a well-being standpoint. How successful they are is different, because the challenge is so monumental, not only for organizations, but for our country, our state and cities. So organizations are standing, and it's not just organization. I think our citizenry is extending all the support that they can to each other, because these are very difficult times for the country, the states and cities. I haven't come across in the last couple of weeks or 3-4 weeks any person whose near one, dear one neighborhood has not got impacted due to this tragedy.
Yes.
So in my view, organizations are doing their best they can. Some of things will get reported out in the public domain, but everybody cannot emulate everybody else. It depends
Yes.
on their, their context they operate in. So you cannot
I think,
expect, you cannot mandate. I think CSR is one area which is already mandated from a regulation standpoint, and how some of those things can be leveraged to support COVID-related initiatives. I think organizations have already started working in that direction. So I don't think mandate would be a, everybody will have the same kind of benefits. It cannot be mandated in a diverse country like us or diverse industry that we operate in.
Absolutely. I think, and it also depends on how the business is doing, because a lot of businesses have also been impacted. And in whatever sense, organizations are able to help their employees. I think in the last couple of weeks, like you just mentioned, there has been a sense of camaraderie throughout the country. People have stepped in, for people they don't even know, and people are helping out. So I think I agree with your point that while we can't mandate organizations to do it, because everybody's sailing, in a different boat as far as the business is concerned. But in their own way, I think even the smallest of organizations are helping employees to, in whatever way they can, whether it is providing oxygen cylinders, whether it is providing vaccination support, in whatever sense it is possible. So I think I agree with you there that while it can't be a mandate, but definitely organizations are looking at, doing their bit in whatever best way that they can. Super.
I think most of the progressive organizations, if you look at it, post this vaccination policy coming into play, they are trying to vaccinate their workforce.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. There is, in fact, even not just the organizations, not just corporates, but a lot of now RWs have also stepped in, and there are vaccination camps in the societies. My own society is getting a vaccination camp done for not just the residents. First preference is the domestic health, the maids, and all of that who are working with us. And so I think in whatever way organizations can, they are definitely helping and supporting employees as best as they can. Okay, great. When it comes to the new kind of, the hybrid structure that we were talking about, great. I think we've, covered most of the questions. In case there is any other question from the audience, it'll be very helpful. It'll be great to have those kind of questions. I don't know if we covered the part on skilling and reskilling. Did we do it? What kind of reskilling would organizations need? What kind of upskilling or reskilling would organizations need to do in a post-COVID world?
I think at Toffler says, illiterate of 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Absolutely.
So reskilling is getting, it's a commoditized word. You have to do it. You don't have a choice.
Right.
Because the skills that were, in existence, as I said earlier also, a few years back, are getting, are taken over by new skills. So you need to be on your toes and keep reskilling yourselves. Today we are talking about, if you look at today's young workforce, they all, most of them who are technology pro, they want to get into AI, robotics.
Right.
So that's the kind of skill which is Viva and others. So these technologies will keep shifting at a pace that we cannot imagine. So reskilling the workforce will be need of the hour. Not only the new one that is coming up, but the old workforce. There are organizations which has a huge workforce. Now it is imperative to reskill them and put their to use. If you look at middle management largely, so earlier if you look at it, there is a job and then they will allocate that job. But now there are scheduler. So some of those do not exist. Now, what do you do with those people? Then you need to retrain them and put them into, newer requirements.
Right. And there was a very interesting study that said that by the year 2030, there'll be 50% of the jobs that people would be doing by that time are not even existing today. So, which brings to my mind, an example that I normally quote, that if 15 years back or 10 years back, somebody would have said that you can make a career as a social media influencer or as a YouTuber or as a blogger, people would have probably, laughed at the person, that how is it possible? But now all those are very hot career options. So I think it's the evolution of technology, definitely the pace at which it is changing and offering so many opportunities to people, especially the Gen Z. I think it's going to be a very fruitful period in the next 10 years. And like you said, it's not just the new people who need to be trained, even the old employees need to be retrained. Like the way you gave the example of the education sector. I mean, all the education, fraternity, everybody in that industry upskilled themselves, reskilled themselves as far as usage of technology is concerned, and they are now completely experts at it. And I'm sure once the schools reopen, I have a feeling that even once the schools reopen and the colleges reopen, I think there'll be a far more better use of technology, which would be very beneficial even in classroom teaching, because now you have a teaching community that is completely equipped to handle technology and to explore technology and to explore the new features. So I'm sure it's a change for the better. Great. There is a question that Prashant has again asked here, that you mentioned that as we move into a hybrid and gig work culture, it would become more outcome or result based. Do you think it will have an impact on the relationships in terms of people connect in the organizations, their commitment or loyalty to one organization? Again, a very pertinent question. The human connect.
I think there would be different ways. The way we used to connect earlier, one-on-one,
Yeah.
And is not going to happen, at least in next few quarters. Right? There would be an apprehension, because when you meet people, you just warmly hug them, or all
Yes.
that is not going to happen, at least till this scare goes away.
Yes.
So now, if you look at it from a social media perspective, there are so many relationships have been built. I have got large following on LinkedIn, and I generally keep it very simple, that try to help out one person every day. So for the last couple of years, I would have supported roughly 800 odd people in terms of helping with them with the job, or helping them with the hope, or solving some of their existing issues. And in the process, I have got multiple friends, and those relationships are as strong as the relationships that were cultivated through physical work. And we may not have met one-on-one in last 1.5 years, but there are few people like they are as good a friend as your physical world friend was. So that is from a relationship perspective. Relationship depends on how much water we give it. Like when there is a seed, then we need to plant it every day. We need to nourish it. Now It is up to you whether you are nourishing it, or you are letting it go. So I don't think our ability not to connect physically will be an impediment to building those relationships at personal level. Similarly, it extends to the corporate world. Now, in the physical world versus this world, I have seen leaders becoming far more empathetic. Sometimes when we look at meetings are happening or other things are happening, the kids would be around. So this is given a sense of greater sense of empathy among the leadership community also, and they have started looking at life from a very different angle, because everybody across the world has got impacted in some way or other.
Yes.
It's not just a country specific situation in the last 1.5-2 years.
Yeah.
So that empathy has come into play, that fragility in terms of life has come into play.
Yeah.
So some of those changes are happening. So I don't see much of a challenge in the. It's rather more instant. The moment you do a call, put a video button. Technology has evolved so much, so you don't
Yes.
feel like not having conversation, because
Yes.
every day I'm now talking to my parents, but
Yes.
I would not have gone and met them, every day otherwise.
Yes.
So it's up to us, Prashant. We will need to nourish it, and we take our relationship generally for granted. When it comes to personal relationship, I think we need to keep investing in them every day.
Sure. I think I just love that perspective that you gave, that it's up to us, whether it is technology, whether it is physical presence. A relationship is something that has to be nurtured. It's just the medium that has changed from being physically able to go and meet people. Like, for example, in my family, we every weekend we all meet up. The extended family, we meet on Zoom, and we chit chat and we play housey and all of that. Something that we would have not done otherwise. We never met everybody on a weekly basis like that. So I completely agree with you there that yes, we do miss the physical hugs and the warmth that you feel when you're sitting face to face with a person. But I think with technology coming in, at least we have an opportunity to nourish those relationships like the way you just mentioned. So completely with you on that point. Okay, Megha is back with another question. She's saying that it's very prominent in case of generic departments like HR, finance, and admin. But she's saying, I think IT companies will prefer people from IT company with an IT experience. FMCG will hire from FMCG experience. So how to break this stigma? Sometimes what I understand from the question is that when you work in a certain industry for a certain number of years, then you become typecast to that industry, and then people from other industries or recruiters from other industries are not open to hire you. So how to break that kind of a stigma? She feels that there is a limitation, that they will have a certain kind of mindset, if they are typecast in one industry. So how would you, what is your insight on this? People from diverse industries, she says, will surely get different perspectives. So how to break the stigma of preferring experienced people from the same industry to join?
I think I touched upon this mindset, during our conversation. You cannot work in 21st century with 20th century mindset. And various organizations operates, and their leadership operate with that mindset. So, like 2 years back, if we would have talked about work from home, it would have been a task,
Yes.
right? But today it is commoditized. Nobody just bother about it, which city you are in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be a huge fuss, which city you operate from and all that. So that is changing. Those managers need to change their mindset. However, at the same time, Megha, for example, when somebody is working in the IT sector and there is a job in manufacturing sector, so manufacturing sector will prefer somebody coming in from manufacturing, and we need to understand what are the reasons for that. For example, large workforce in IT world is not exposed to labor laws. Their exposure to compliance is limited largely to the compliance departments.
Yes.
So HR, when you look at it, is not just about your employee engagement and all. There are other facets of HR as well, which not many people are exposed to. So there is nothing wrong if manufacturing teams prefer to hire people who have that kind of background in case the job description says so. However, in my view, particularly in support function, we are industry agnostic people.
Yeah.
So since your question is about enabling function only, HR, admin, IT, we can fit in anywhere and everywhere. plus minus, wherever the qualification is needed, as I said, labor laws, etc. But otherwise, we can. And there are some people who will have that mindset, but that will also change gradually.
Yes.
And leadership mindset is shifting. Supervisors' mindset is shifting. This 1.5 year has changed a lot of mindset, a lot of perspective. So people are becoming more open. But there would, of course, be people who would need a lot more training to accept and imbibe those perspectives.
Absolutely. And I think in the hiring process, I think that is also undergoing change now. I mean, what probably recruiters or hiring managers are now looking at, what is your ability to learn? How quick can you learn the nitty-gritties of a particular industry, no matter you are from manufacturing or from IT or from whichever industry, especially in generic roles like HR, finance, admin. I think it's also the ability to really, relearn, or how quickly you can grasp the industry knowledge is what is I think a more greater criteria in selecting someone from a non-industry background. For example, I've worked in different industries, and I think the only way I could survive in different industries was the speed with which I could understand the business and get a hang of the industry as far as possible. So I think that's something that would be very beneficial for everybody, who's looking at an industry switch and doesn't want to be a typecast. Just talking from a personal experience point of view. Great. I think we could go on, but I think this brings us to the end of today's conversation. Thank you very much, Raj, for your insights. It was a lovely discussion. I apologize once again for the technical glitch. Sometimes technology just betrays us when we need it the most, but so is life. Thank you, and really, a real honor for us to have you on our platform and to listen to your words of wisdom. And we hope to have you back again with us on one of the other, another episodes of Leadership Spotlight series on a new topic. Thank you very much to the audience as well, who took our time today and on a Saturday afternoon and came for this session. Thank you very much. Keep attending and keep enriching yourselves. Stay safe and have a happy weekend ahead, guys. Thank you. Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Shivani. I think Anurag filled in very well.
Yes.
During those power cuts. So
thank you.
Thank you.
It's a team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.